Hopefully this is the first of many conferences on psychoanalysis, art, and the occult, because to make a shitty joke, I think we've tapped something here, folks. See here. Welcome back. This is the 5th of our apocalyptic panels right here. I'll be your moderator of infernal ideas for this segment. Let's see right here. Let's just move straight into the bios of these wonderful people right next to me, and I feel particularly privileged, as you should as well, because we have a couple of extremely creative and strange women and a voodoo priest. So if you're anything like me, you're very happy to endure customs, jet lag, demons, stigmata, resistance, countertransference, trauma, curses, the anal stage, and castration for such a wonderful and rare setup as this. Let's see who we're with, and I have to apologize for my pronunciation. Who's actually speaking first?
It's in the order.
Oh, it is in the order?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see right here. We'll put them to the panel side right here. Demetrius. Oh, thank you. Very good. I always love the hand. All right. Okay, so Demetrius Lacroix has dedicated his life to the study of the occult, spirituality, and religion of traditional societies in the ancient and modern world, having studied many forms of traditional belief from his own upbringing and later initiation into Haitian Vodou. Lacroix comes from a multicultural background, offering a worldview shaped by his immersion into misunderstood and vilified cultures. Lacroix seeks to present the underrepresented occult in an understandable and edifying way. He's a professional psychic, spiritual counselor, and an advisor in no more appropriate a place than Salem, Massachusetts. Should we go through all our bios, or should we do it one at a time? One at a time. Okay, here we go. All right.
So before I begin, I'm just going to do a short invocation of several spirits that made my ability to communicate about this topic possible. So thanks to you. Papa legba segwolwa sevilina siso. Papa legba segwolwa sevilina siso bogran shemen parela. Papa legba segwolwa ye. Papa legba segwolwa sevilina siso gran shemen pare. Alegba dia nula nula. Alegba dia nula cette soir. Ezili fuera ola dada ome o kaimwen. Ma pewele metras ki sorti en batlo se fam shams mwen. Se wo paka ka o paka. Ma pewele metras. Ma pewele mambo ki sorti en batlo se fam shams mwen. Se wo paka ka o paka. Mambo zila berfam nan petwo. Mambo zila berfam nan petwo. Malado aje. Men kasile la sosie la fwe. La kase ale sotile. Mambo zila berfam nan petwo. Malado aje. So briefly, I'll make you familiar with the idea of Vodou, because Vodou tends to be really strangely misrepresented the farther away you leave the Caribbean. Vodou is a syncretic religious system that derived from West African beliefs, their philosophies from Benin, Nigeria, the Congo, combined with native Taino Arawak beliefs, combined with European Catholicism expressed through the French ideas, and several other magical traditions from Europe, sort of. Vodou has a very complicated idea of the soul, and while it's a huge topic to try to communicate about, I'm going to attempt to do that. So I suppose it's really important to understand in Vodou, every living thing has a really powerful point of energy and consciousness, and that is kind of understated. So the idea of the soul being in 7 pieces is the idea that if one of these pieces were to be removed or misplaced in a strange way, that everything else would sort of collapse underneath it. So the really important idea of this is that we as human beings, as living things, everything has a body, has a physical body. The corpse cadavre, which is what this is called, is not your body as an animated, active thing, but literally just as a shell of like just a corpse. Inside of that, this vessel is where everything else is built on top of. The idea that animates this corpse is the ghost banage, which is the great good angel. It's that spark of life that just allows you to have movement and idea. I like to kind of think about it as like almost like the brain stem. It's those basic things that allow you to live, the things you are unconsciously doing all the time, breathing, your heart, etc. The second sort of layer of this is the T-banage. This is the idea, the concept that allows you to, that's your characteristics, it's your character, it's who you are, it's all of your weaknesses and your strengths, and it's what makes you you. So just in those 3 layers, you have already a really kind of complicated sort of thing already. Because if one of those 3 things is out of order, then you aren't alive, or you're not living to your fullest potential. Something that I also thought about conquering in this talk was also the ideas of sort of the 2 ideas of spiritual well-being and spiritual unwellness. The idea of well-being being the idea of possession, and the idea of spiritual unwellness being seen through the idea of zombification, where spiritual wellness in this case being expressed through possession. Possession in Haitian Vodou is sort of an essential idea. It's the ability to communicate. It's the highest ability to communicate with the spirits, and that the spirits are in sort of alignment with you. In order for possession to occur, the T-banage, that thing that is your characteristics, that makes you you, is momentarily displaced and replaced with the energy of that spirit. So in that way, we see that there's already one part of us that's already removable, that can already be changed. And it's that part that we have to kind of, in Vodou, that we see we have to protect the most. The T-banage is the part of you that also, because we've talked a lot about dreams in this talk, is the idea that that's the part that exits into the spirit world or enters into the spirit world. So as we go sort of to the more ethereal, perhaps less visible ideas of the soul, it's really important to keep those 3 in mind. So the second idea of this is the 4th layer is the Name. The interesting thing with Name is it's also a word from Ghana that relates to God, but it's how we see the layer of like health and wellness and how you actually are doing. So in the idea of like when you can see that someone is ill, that's when someone doesn't look right. That is the layer that's showing this is the Name. Now, this is also the same layer that you can also see where people have like been cursed, or have a thing that's blocking them, or have it's that part that emanates outward. I feel like it's more of a subtle energy that is usually only communicated to by other diviners and people who are operating spiritually within sort of the Vodou context. The 5th and kind of 6th weird layer. There's the Zetoile and Shemen. So Zetoile and Shemen, which is the Star of Destiny and the Road of Destiny. So the idea is when you're born into the world, you're born under a star. Not necessarily like in the sense of astrology, but in the sense of that there is a spirit or a super ancestor that has decided this is the light that's going to shine on you, and this is the road that it's going to illuminate forward for you. So with that Star of Destiny and the Road of Destiny and your Tivon Ange, you have this three very powerful sources of how you're going to go in life. And finally, the let's see, Tivon Ange, Cosmon Ange, and then so I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of ahead of myself. The Zetoile also has this idea of and of course, it also is going to lead you to the final layer of this, which is the most elusive and usually only captured by people who are going to further themselves into the world of Vodou or ingrain themselves within that culture, whether they're there in Haiti or not, is also the Nutet, or the Guo Ange. Which is the superpower, the spiritual force that decides to walk with you throughout your entire life, and the court of spirits that follows behind that particular spirit. So all of these layers in Haitian Vodou are considered very fragile, and they need to be maintained all the time. Within the Haitian psyche, everything is in constant revolution. Like everything is fighting against each other for survival, and so oftentimes you might find people definitely believing in curses in the way that, like, oh, my life is I don't have lots of money, my job kind of sucks, all these things are happening. It must be the result of a curse. So how do you go about solving that? You have to see what layers need to be adjusted, what needs to be seen, what needs to actually develop for someone. And the way that you can go about doing that is really examining like each layer as an individual. Is the person alive? Well, then there's nothing wrong with the Gros Valanche. Is the person upset? Oh yeah, so that's a T Valanche. And then where does that lead you to? Lead you to the person's destiny. Has the person's destiny been altered? Has their road been altered? Have they strayed from their road? Have they left the light of that star that was guiding them from birth? And how do you get them back to that point? The answer to all of this sort of really boils down to the spirits. The invocation I did in the very beginning, I sang for Papa Legba, who is the spirit of the doorway, who all things must enter and all things will leave through. Following that was Zombification, which is sort of the idea of that star of destiny in that way, where we see the star of destiny is sort of, when I said super ancestor, it's the idea that in Haitian Vodou, the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, is the font of like the spiritual dead. All things are born from it, all things will return to it. And so if you consider, like if you ever looked out at the ocean at night and you look out and you see there's a point almost where it looks like the sea and the sky meet, that's where the idea of like the afterworld is. And so the star rising out of the sea of the dead, being that super ancestor, that unknown ancestor that has a connection to you, that could be a spirit, that could be, whatever. That's usually where these sort of problems sort of arise. And this is also where sort of identity situations and sort of arise as well. So with the spiritual sort of framework that I've laid out, like I said, it's really if one of these layers is really corrupted, then everything else is. I'm sorry, I was going to talk about spirits. The final spirit that I sang from was for Mambo Zila. Mambo Zila is not really talked about, and when I said to my Mambo that I was going to mention her and talk and sing for her here, she's like, oh, you don't need to do that, she's not here. But she's here now. And so Mambo Zila is she's a very powerful Loa. She is a healer, but she's also an extraordinary fighter. She carries 2 machetes and a whip. And usually the machetes she carries are by the blade. And the idea is that in the song, she breaks all things with magic, and with magic she breaks all kinds of things. And this is almost directly referring to the idea of the soul, because she, when she comes down with possession, she makes medicine. And this medicine is not necessarily like for a cold or for the flu, but medicine for a person's soul. This person, like for example, if you're in a particularly rough area, she might decide that she needs to make a medicine so that you can avoid being shot, being stabbed, being robbed, being inconvenienced by other human beings. And so this is where this idea of like spiritual health and Haitian Vodou comes from. Because if you put like, for the idea is like, let's say you were robbed. You being robbed might really instigate the idea of like physical unwellness and then spiritual unwellness. So you have to correct the thing that was taken from you, and then you'll start to see the other change in your life that you're hoping for or require to change. So with this idea of all of these forces that you have to balance and all of these spirits that you have to maintain, like how do you do that? And that's really what the Nutet is for. That is the idea. It's this constant guiding force. It's your constant parent. It's the energy that's going to carry you through the worst times and the best of times. And if you're able to communicate with it, if you're able to know what it is, you're able to know what certain problems are you're going to always have, and how you can address them, and also the certain benefits you're going to have, so that you can use those to increase the output of goodness in your life. So, for example, if your Nutet is a spirit called Agwe, which is the spirit that runs the boat between the world of the living and the sea of stars, what we talked about, that point of the ocean where the sky and the stars meet, you might have like extraordinarily great business opportunities be thrown at you forever. You might have, when it comes to travel and luxury and things, but when it comes to actual like where you live, it might be that you're constantly always in transit or motion. So how do you solve that? You have to actually work with that spirit to find some sort of actual stability. So if you have an afflicted spirit that's someone's done some work against you with that spirit, how do you solve it? You have to go to that spirit, and you have to figure out what's been done, and then what part of you has been affected, and then what medicine has to be applied to that particular part.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
How does one identify their Nutet?
The Nutet is identified through divination. So Jesse spoke about a really in-depth form of African divination that does exist in some parts of the Caribbean, but unfortunately Vodou in Haiti was not able to maintain that level of wisdom. It didn't make it there. So we have different forms of divination that are not as precise, or maybe not precise is not the right word. It's not as in depth as that. We have spirits that show up in divination, and there are certain ones that people expect for your head, and there's ones that people that are totally weird, and then you have that definitely is attributed to the star you're born under and the road that you walk on. For example, like a really weird spirit would be if your head was Mambozila, you would probably need to become a doctor or like a recluse in the woods. And so based on what your Nutet is based on your what you can expect sort of in your life. Not that you're chained to that, but that it's a part of the things you have to work with constantly. So a really popular spirit that has a lot of children. When a spirit owns someone's head, they're referred to as that spirit's child. So children of Freda, there's Freda, which is the spirit of love and luxury, of the feeling of brand new ideas. Like when you have a great idea, that feeling of excitement is Zuli Freda. Zuli Freda is also the idea of fickleness and the inability to be pleased. So it's also, so if you're a person has this, you have to be constantly aware of your attitude towards people and how you engage with them. Being dismissive is a part of her nature, and therefore will be a part of yours. So if someone's afflicting your, if they know that you have a vilified and they're afflicting it, then you might respond to people in a much more dismissive way than you otherwise would, or you might become not necessarily, well, I guess the word unfaithful would be appropriate, but in a way where you wouldn't see, or you wouldn't see that. You would create another paradigm in which it would be all right for this to occur. So that's when you really have to understand these different layers and know what you're looking at and what you're seeing. It's the importance of having of community within Vodou, because nothing can happen in Vodou without other people. You need to have like the people who know the signs of what to see, the people who know all these individual layers and how they're all going to interact with everyone else and yourself. One of the ways that this is can be adjusted is through initiation. Initiation in Vodou is a very big sort of event where your tibanage, that part of you that it gives you your individual characteristics, is not necessarily removed, but it's displaced from your person and put somewhere else. And in replace, that spirit that is your Nutet is put there momentarily. So it's this idea where the thing that rules your head now has the ability to rule over your characteristics and the quality of person you are, aligning you with your star of destiny and your road that you walk on. So when you go through that kind of a ritual, you are taking out the most riskiest part of the spiritual mainframe, which is your characteristics, the quality of person you are, and you replace it with something that is a staple and is a center pole in the idea of how this cosmology works. When it comes to other sort of remedies for this, or actually, when we talk about spiritual unwellness to the umpteenth degree, if your characteristics are so detrimental to the society, to the people around you, an option that maybe nowadays isn't so popular is zombification. And when we talk about zombification, I don't necessarily mean like people coming back from the dead, but literally being able to people removing the part of you that's your characteristics, the part of you that is removing your tibanage, taking you away from your star of destiny, taking you off of your road, and placing you in a literally liminal space where you're only conscious. And that's what you do. You're trapped in this space. So if this happens to someone if this is not what is supposed to happen to them, how do you correct that? Well, you have to know how to rebuild that person up. You have to know, okay, what was their spirit before? Where was their star before? Where was their road before? And if you didn't have that contact with these people before, or didn't have that sort of community or society, there might be no other way to reclaim you. And so you might just be in that liminal space forever. And when I mean forever, in the sense of Vodou, it would be literally forever, because no one can reclaim your soul, because it's gone. The idea of reclaiming souls is a very big thing as well. So the sea as that font and of source of souls is where when people die in Vodou, we believe that their soul goes to the sea, what we call Ambandlo. And then a year after their death, we have a ritual called Ambandlo, which means to reclaim from under the water. And usually it's done for people that are important within the community. Otherwise, they're just risen up, fed, the spirits that are on their head removed, and then they're sent back under the water. In other situations, they can be put into vessels and then are honored as those super ancestors in a way. So when this idea of reclaiming souls from the sea and the idea of the sea of souls, there are souls there that are totally forgotten. And those souls end up becoming a category of spirit that we call Gere. Now Gere is very popular with people because it's like, we've heard of Balançon before, or any of the Day of the Dead kind of looking characters with cigars and top hats and canes. These guys are the representations of the forgotten dead, and so it's perhaps thought that maybe those people become Gere. thing.
Was that considered an honor? Or is it just a cool thing that might happen?
It's a cool thing that might happen.
It's a possible reality.
It's a possible reality out of all the other things that could happen down there. So when you consider the idea of the Sea of Souls also, and you consider that there are big names down there that people do remember, what becomes of them? Because if the person's been totally aligned with their Nutet, been totally aligned with the spiritual force that guides them, that's when we see them as elevated ancestors or being a part of that greater spiritual force, that greater Loa. So if there was a Mambo, a priestess that was super powerful with La Sirène, and her Nutet was La Sirène, she may become a part of La Sirène or may manifest as a part of La Sirène. In that same way, if someone's being initiated and they're in the sacred room called the Jebo, if they're in there and they see that this person is showing sort of signs, that star of destiny is given the name of the person who they resemble. So, for example, if that Mambo's name was Mambo Yashode and the person's doing similar things as former Mambo Yashode, they might become the new Mambo Yashode. And so their star of destiny is named, and we know kind of what we can expect from them, and we know by their name what they can do. The name in Vodou, which is also really powerful too, I suppose, but not necessarily a part of the soul, which is like literally like what you are called is what you will do. So like for example, using Yashode, Yashode means touch me and you burn. So what does that mean? It means, yeah, if you touch a person, you'll burn, but it also means that they have so much power that they're literally like a stove, like an oven or a cauldron. They have the ability to birth all kinds of things from them. At the risk of you upsetting that, then you burn. So when it comes to like the more, like I totally realize I'm talking about something totally foreign and alien. And then talking about it like as if you should know these sort of things. So forgive me if this is like way out there. The other another kind of interesting concept too is the idea of when a person when their star destiny is in a place that is not good for them or anyone else and it's detected early, you have an ability to sort of like redirect that or place them under a different star. That is also done through initiation, but it's there where it's sort of different in this way. So in some cases, in some traditions, you can be initiated for your health, and that was like if you're sick and you need to cure, and the spirit says, oh, do this and you'll be cured, then you do that. But if there's like, for example, if you're like 4 years old and they detect this thing and you're like, oh, this child could die and blah, 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 because of the star of destiny and their road that they're on. You can initiate them and you give them an entirely different road, like you literally birth them again. So that they have the ability to be born under a different star, to be born on a different road, to have this totally different worldview. But doing that, you also then are really, because you can't ever get rid of that one. You're literally living in two spaces, and that's also a very interesting place. A person having two souls.
So right there, so you're saying that you could give them a new path, but at the same time, you still have that one lingering in the background.
It's still there, like a part of like one foot is on there, and the other foot is on the other one, and the star, both those stars are there. And it's there where that child has to obviously make the choice to either connect with that road that they've walked down or have been put on rather by their second birth or their first. So it's the power of free will and freedom that exists within Haitian Vodou as a constant subtlety. The Haitian idea of what the world view kind of is that you must revolt against everything, and you must have always the ability to choose between one thing or another. If you weren't aware, Haiti had the only really successful slave revolution in the New World, and so revolution is clearly going to always be a part of their narrative, in the same way that is also seen in the United States. But in a much more violent and dramatic way in Haiti. So if you're if you're in the space of revolution and you have to revolt against it. That can work it can work against you or it can work for you. If you revolt against your own self in the road you're on and the star that you're on, you're only vexing yourself.